So let's talk about the new online exam format with Pearson VUE that allows you to take Cisco tests from home. All right, so first let's just address a couple of the specifics. It has the same test number and has the same exam cost. Then next I'm going to show you guys how to schedule the exam step-by-step online. Then we're going to look at some of the exam policies that I can remember from my experience. And then I've got some tips and advice if you guys want to take the online exam. And then I've got my conclusion about whether or not I prefer the new online exam format or the old standard testing center format. All right, so now we're going to look at how to schedule this online. First thing you do is go to pearsonvue.com. For test takers, schedule an exam. You can type in Cisco. Sign in. All right, so then once you've signed in, you click on View Exams. You search for 200-301. All right, so here is the only difference. If you're going to schedule it online, then you say at home office rather than at testing center. It's going to ask you to run Precheck. We're not going to do that right now. Then you just click next, and the rest of so you have to select all these boxes, and the rest of the scheduling process is going to be exactly the same as just scheduling a normal test, so I'm not going to take you through that. All right, so as best I can remember, these are the Pearson VUE and Cisco Online exam policies. So after a certain point in the setup process, you literally cannot move. You have to sit there, and they want to basically see your eyes and face the whole time. All of your personal electronics must be out of reach. So you do have to use your phone to take a picture of all 4 angles of your room. And then once you're done with that part of the process, you take your phone and you set it aside. You're not allowed to have headphones. And I'm pretty sure they asked me to take my hat off as well. And you can't put your hand over your mouth. So I had a few times where I was deep in thought thinking about a question. I put my fist over my mouth, and multiple times the proctor asked me to not do that, so I know you can't do that. No other monitors in your room can be powered on other than the one you're working on. They're kind of paranoid about this. Even though I showed them in my pictures that all of my other monitors were turned off, on one of my online tests, they actually made me take my webcam again and show them that all the other monitors were turned off. All the other apps and processes must be turned off on your computer, like your antivirus or OneNote programs. At a certain point, the program that they're using basically takes over your computer, and they'll tell you what processes you have to kill if you have to kill some. All right, so my number one tip is don't overhydrate yourself because there's no bathroom breaks. So the CCNA test is a 2-hour test, and you're probably going to need the bulk of that time. You can't get up for 2 hours, and obviously if you have to go to the bathroom really bad, it's going to inhibit your ability to focus. They need you staring forward the whole time. They want to see your eyes basically at all times to make sure there's no funny business. And you also want to do everything you can to be comfortable, so use your best chair, have everything ready to take the test. I would also recommend having your computer freshly rebooted, and that's just because you want to do everything that you can to technically have a good experience. And I would also recommend not starting the sign-in process until 10 to 15 minutes before the test. You're allowed to start 30 minutes before. Actually, you're allowed to do like pre-check activities, take pictures of the room, and do everything they want you to do before 30 minutes before your test, but I wouldn't recommend doing it because they're just going to make you do it again at the earliest of 30 minutes before the test. And what happens is if you do it 30 minutes before the test and you get done with your part, but the proctor doesn't show up until the exact time of your test, then you just have to sit there, because once you make it to a certain point in the setup, you have to sit there whether or not the proctor's there. And so my recommendation would be to start the process 10 to 15 minutes before the actual test time. And that way you're ready to go at about the same time as the start of your test, and that's when the proctor usually shows up, for me anyway. Hey, so I'm putting this slide in here after the fact because I realized that I left out something extremely important, and some of what I said might have been confusing. So the part that I said that you don't want to do until 10 to 15 minutes before the exam is really the part that initiates the start of the exam. One thing that you definitely do want to do well ahead of time, and probably as soon as you schedule the exam, is to do the system pre-check, and that is to make sure that your webcam and microphone are both functioning. It's part of the requirements for the exam that your webcam works and that your microphone works, and the system pre-check is really just more of a hardware check to make sure that your hardware works with their software. So that you should do right away. then the whole exam check-in process you shouldn't do until 10 to 15 minutes before the exam. All right, so my conclusion is I definitely prefer a testing center. If I had a testing center directly down the street, that's what I would be using. So for me, it's just how much time is it saving me? I probably would be willing to drive up to 15, 20 minutes in each direction to go take it at a testing center. It just feels like there's a lot of things that could go wrong. Like if you suddenly lost connection, and I'm not sure exactly what their policies are on this stuff, but if you suddenly lost connection or something like that, like if your internet connection just flaked out and all of a sudden they can't see you, then do you just, are you out your exam fees? Or even if they do give you a voucher, then you have to, go through the process of doing it all again. And it just feels like there's a lot of things that can go wrong. But anyway, that's my advice for taking the test online. It looks like it definitely might be a reality and what's happening in our current world with everything going on. So hopefully that helps you make the best of it. If you found that helpful, please consider giving a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.